kind of the first thing that always pops to my mind is just not having a fear of failure. And I learned that by failing. I mean, right? And sport was kind of that teaching moment repeatedly, day in and day out.
Mike, welcome to the podcast. So happy to have you on the show.
It's great to be here.
I remember I was at a Ticats game in I think in 2015. I believe it was November, and I saw you on the Tim Hortons Stadium on the big screen. I think that's the last time I saw you in person. So it's been a while.
It has been a while. Hey, listen, it's great to see you. Always great to talk to alumnus of McMaster. So and a football guy. So I'm looking forward to this.
Amazing. Before I let you introduce yourself, I just want to quickly highlight a couple of things that I want the listeners to really, know about Mike. You were an all-star McMaster football player, went to the CFL for 12 years, 2 times Grey Cup champion, CFL's most outstanding Canadian player, and a Grey Cup Canadian MVP. What a track record from an athletics perspective. That's like unheard of.
Well, it's not bad. I mean, looking back, it's when you say that, all I think is, well, I went to 3 Grey Cups, I lost that one. That's what pops right into my head.
And that's the competitive spirit, right? That's exactly it. After your career was, you finished your career in the CFL. I know you went over the CFL Players Association as a president, spent some time at Airsprint, and most recently, you've actually made history. You stood up the first professional Canadian basketball league, or the basketball league in Canada, and it had its first play in 2019. And this in 2020, I think you guys had the first ever league to go back to return to play amidst COVID, and you guys made history there as well. So congratulations on all the accomplishments in the past couple of years, Mike.
Well, thank you. And I mean, again, I don't do it alone. I guess I'm the face and the person out in front leading, but certainly it takes an army of people, as you know, no different than sport, to get this done. So I'm blessed with a great group.
Is there anything that you wanted to highlight right off the bat, Mike? And I'm particularly interested in knowing, how has the past 2 years been for you? Standing up CEBL, and I mean we'll dive into some other areas in a bit, but really want to understand how was it standing up this brand new league, and then once COVID hit, how have you pivoted from an organizational perspective?
Well, when you go back probably 4 years now, when we started talking about the CEBL kind of in its infancy, we hadn't played a game, weren't looking to play a game for several years. We were just preparing the business and looking at ways to be successful. So when you go back that far and you do all that legwork and business planning ahead of time, it really allows you to be a lot more nimble and agile and prepared, when you actually start playing and you encounter things like we just encountered, which obviously no one planned for in terms of COVID and the pandemic. So, we had a very successful year one, and again, it's due to all the legwork we've done and the hard work of all our people. Started with 6 teams across the country, finished our inaugural season in 2019, and we're thrilled with the way it finished. And the Rattlers from Saskatchewan winning the championship game in their hometown. It was just kind of poetry in that respect. And then we had a tremendous off season, and that was adding a 7th team in Ottawa, adding just a tremendous group of players and new coaches and general managers. And then, signing a 3-year partnership with CBC, and then boom, come mid-March, the wheels fall off. So I think, all that pre-planning really, without getting into so specifics on how we did it, I'm happy to do that. But it came down to the way we were structured. And we took the approach from day one that we would be a single entity ownership. We would govern ourselves in a way that we would be able to be successful in the long term. So I think that planning allowed us to be able to be nimble and reactive and be able to be successful in pulling off a summer series in 2020.
It's amazing. I know I checked it. I saw it on CBC. I know that was huge, getting on the big stage. So I think exactly as you said, is getting all the preparation, the planning, and the structure in place. And I think like when I look back to even small businesses today, or even leaders today, the business technology side, I think the people that do well during when change happens are the people that have done the preparation and the foundational work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that, I mean, you don't plan for it, right? You just try to make sure you've done all the legwork. And we're a small organization in size. We hit above our weight, that's for sure. I wouldn't. We have, because we own everything, we have lots of people that work for us. But truthfully, it's a startup, in many respects. So we're still in our startup phase, and I look at other startups around us, not even sport related. And when COVID hit, that could literally mark the end, and we didn't want that to happen. So we were able to pivot based on how we operate, and we pivoted in a smart way, obviously, and we're thankful we were able to return and be the first ones to return. We didn't plan to be the first, but we're certainly happy we were the first, and we finished safely, and now we can sit back and observe others and learn from them as well.
Exactly. Now it's time for you to learn from your own season, also from other organizations. One thing that comes to mind is, I know Coach always used to say, you never have enough time to take all the reps. Learn from the folks in front of you.
Yes.
Right. So I think this is a great metaphor for that. But you have to learn what people are doing, what other businesses doing, that you can apply different concepts from to make sure you guys keep the great momentum. But anyways, congratulations on the great season, Mike. I was actually reading your blog on CEBL.ca, the commissioner's blog. I think it's some great content there, especially the one I think when you spoke about the actual pivot that happened, and I know you mentioned it was like entire organization, entire team effort. So kudos to you guys.
Thank you.
One question that I have, Mike, right off the bat, again, I'm really curious to know, what is one thing that you applied from all of your years of athletics in standing up this elite basketball league in Canada?
Well, I think the one thing, and it's kind of the first thing that always pops to my mind, is just not having a fear of failure. And I learned that by failing. I mean, right? And sport was kind of that teaching moment repeatedly, day in and day out. It didn't have to be, failure in a big game drop and a touchdown pass. And believe me, I've done that. But that's the only way you learn to make them in the tough times, right? I think you go through so much stuff on a daily basis in sport that really it's life in a nutshell, and it comes at you fast and furious. And when you play a sport like football, which to me is the ultimate team sport because of just the sheer number of people you play with, then you realize that you're just a small cog in everything else that's going on. So, when we were doing all this stuff, we just tried to be better than what we were. And we didn't know when everything hit in mid-March if we'd play or what the plan was. We just knew that we're going to take this time to be a better organization. And that really comes from, again, my sporting background and repetitions and preparation and doing stuff over and over and over again. Because truthfully, and this, you play once a week for 3 hours, but you practice a lot more to get to that point. And that's kind of what we do on a business side, or what I preach, and that teamwork is a huge part of it.
Amazing. I know one thing that I'm really curious to know, Mike, is failure is great. And, I come from sports background, and that's kind of what I preach to my team. Is like, unless we're failing, we're not trying hard enough, right? Mm-hmm. It's hard when I talk to some other people, because for them, if they fail, they're afraid of judgment, or they're afraid that leadership might see them as a failure in the macro kind of things. What advice would you give to a leader who is trying to move fast, but just isn't going over the edge because of the fear of judgment?
That's a great question, because I guess it's innate with people like you and I, because we understand there's a next play. And I think in business, not everybody has the foresight to see beyond that decision. They have to understand that we're dealing with individuals and people, and we're asking them to do things. And unless you allow them some freedom to make decisions and to do it full speed, then people will always be sitting back and be taking calculated risks. And there's nothing wrong with taking calculated risks, but sometimes you just have to, if you have that gut feeling, you got to go for it. But from a leadership perspective, these are all teaching moments. So when we do things and we make a wrong decision, it's not the end of the world. We'll adjust and pivot and make it right, but we'll probably not do that again. But if you live in a area or in a business that you saran wrap everything and everybody's afraid to make mistakes, then you're never going to be better than the next guy. You're just not. And we don't aim to make mistakes. We aim to do things that maybe are a little bit different, or we try to extend ourselves and go outside of our comfort zone. I think as a leader, you have to go outside of your comfort zone as well. You can't just ask your staff to do it.
Exactly. And I think knowing when to extend yourself and knowing which battles to pick as well. And I think also one of the things is knowing how your team will be reacting to some of the different variables that you might want to be pushing on. I think is also some of the key areas that you highlighted on. If you're going to make a mistake, make it at full speed.
Yes.
We always hear that on the football field, yeah. Right? So
to follow up on that, it's, that's that whole thing. I mean, sometimes you just got to go for it. You just got to jump in, and they're calculated. I mean, every mistake we made in the football field was based on learnings we had for years and years and years, right? But so they're calculated risks, but they are at full speed. They have to be. Speaking
of football, walk me through your McMaster career in a 2-minute quick little snippet.
Well, I'll make it easy for you. I never made the playoffs my whole time at McMaster. Far different than what you guys went through after me. I'm a Hamiltonian, and I grew up here, went to high school here, and et cetera. So going to Mac was not on top of my mind. It just, I never visited the campus. I didn't really think about it. And then one day I did go for a visit. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a hidden gem, right in our backyard. And, I was coming out of high school. There was a lot of guys that played in Hamilton that I played against at different schools that started committing to Mac. And I said, well, let me look at this here. These are good players. They're good people. I'm going to take a chance. And I went there. I had a great career in terms of maybe not wins and losses, but obviously an opportunity to play. That was important to me, and to try to achieve my goals. And my ultimate goal was to play in the CFL. And I didn't let losing records stop me. I just tried to get better every day. But I had situations that were difficult with coaching changes and maybe not the support of the school at that time that the school has now for football. Mm-hmm. But these are all character builders. I had great teammates to rely on. So really, at the end of the day, what more can you ask for? But yeah, we had a tough go in terms of wins and losses. But I personally, I had a good career. I put my name into the draft early in my third year and was drafted, and ended up coming back. I went to BC, got cut very early in my career, and it was a bit of a shock to the system, but it propelled me to come back to school for my fourth year and then get picked up by Toronto after that. And then my career was started, but it was an absolutely great experience. I still talk to all of my teammates on a regular basis, and we blame the coaches and all this stuff for not winning, but we got to talk about something, right?
You gotta talk about something, exactly. You mentioned, Mike, there's so many changes during your time during this 4-year stretch, right? How do you? Nowadays there's so many changes in the business world, and every year it's just getting faster and faster. Technologies disrupting the industries. You have startups that can now sell the same product somebody was selling before, but on Instagram, and really take away market share. How do you cope with change? Because change is a constant, right?
I would say early in my career, just personally, change was difficult for me. And I think, when I started playing sports and started realizing that some things were out of my control, I just got used to it. I just used that as a positive, not a negative. So change is difficult for a lot of people. I think you have to understand that, even though it may be easy for me now, for your staff and people you work for, that's a comfort zone thing. They don't like change. A lot of people don't, because it disrupts kind of your daily life and everything. But you have to be able to be nimble. I think that's the one thing we learned, and how we structured ourselves was certainly in a way that we can just, not only be proactive, but be reactive quickly. And, it was encouraging to be able to get myself through that as I went through my, professional career, or, playing sports. But, change is something that comes fast and furious nowadays, not like the old days where I think, without the technology influence like we have today, it involves, not only being open to change, but being smart about it, because you can make a wrong decision based on, someone else may be successful and you look to that, but it may be short-term success. You really have to look beyond it for a long-term vision. And it's tough because a lot of it's based in technology and not everyone is up to speed on technology. So having smart people around you helps too.
That's an amazing point. I've seen a lot of, and this is something that really pre-COVID, I've seen many small influencers do really well on Instagram, for example, and monetize a lot of products because the economy is doing so well. But it's very short-term based because they had one platform and one product. And when COVID hit, all of the following, all of the spend that they were actually collecting went down the drain. And because it wasn't long-term perspective, they didn't build enough revenue streams. It wasn't, from a brand perspective, I think, to your point, that was a short-term decision. Now, some of them will survive, but I think you always got to have the long-term plan.
Yeah.
So my question for you from that is, how did you have such a long CFL career? Because 12 years is unheard of.
Well, man, and to further to that, I never missed a game my whole career, which I'm not sure was a smart decision some days, but I taped myself up and went out there. But yeah, again, this is what drove me. I was always scared that somebody was going to take my job. Like that was something, and I knew I was good at what I did, but I also knew that, there's more guys like me that want it just as bad as me, and they're my teammates, but it's a competition. So that longevity, I mean, a lot of it's good luck and it's timing. Don't kid yourself. I mean, an injury in my career could have derailed me and I wouldn't have played 12 years, but I always wanted to be the smartest guy in the field. So I knew what my strengths were, and my strengths were my ability to catch the ball in traffic. I was a receiver, as you know, and to take a hit and to move the chains. It wasn't to catch 90-yard bombs. So I knew where I fit in, but it was also, the smarts, right? And as you get older, I think when you're a young guy, you rely just on athleticism. And as you get older, you realize, okay, well, my athleticism's not stacking up like it used to. So now I got to start incorporating my brain. And then it became, building that relationship with your quarterback, your receivers, and everybody on offense, et cetera, and just getting smarter. And when you play smart, life becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, it's like, you still got to work hard, but if you also work smart at the same time, you're twice as effective, right?
Right.
You said relationships. I don't think a lot of people understand how important relationships are in sports. Walk me through that piece.
Well, here's the thing. I think I started becoming a better receiver, a better player when I knew what everyone else around me was doing. So I had to be able to open my mind to understanding that, obviously the O-line's got to protect, so the quarterback has time to throw the ball, and the receivers got to work together. When you're young, the receiver or the quarterback calls a play, and you say, okay, I need to run an out route.
Execute it.
Right.
Yeah.
But you don't realize that you're running this and the other guys are running that, and it's all on a purpose to do it, together. We don't know where the ball's going. It's a whole system. And you have to build relationships within that system because there has to be a trust factor. There just has to be. You can't play with someone that you don't trust or you don't think is going to be at the right place at the right time. And, a lot of people just think, well, it's the relationship between the quarterback and the receiver. Well, it goes far beyond that, as you know, but you need that as well. There has to be trust. That player or that person, your teammate, has to know that you put in the effort both on the field and off the field so they can rely on you, because it's a game of many people that it takes everyone to win.
What do you do in a situation when you have that one person on the field or in a business setting that you can't trust, that's not pulling his or her weight? What do you do?
You initially rely on the coaches, obviously, but they're not perfect and they're going to miss it, and sometimes they overlook things. We would take it upon ourselves, as a receiving crew, let's say, that we didn't have a guy that was buying into the system, because it really does take everybody to buy in. And, I've played with just some tremendous athletes, but the best teams I played on had the best locker rooms, which meant that we were a brotherhood. Everybody knew everybody trusted everybody, both sides of the ball. So, a lot of that is that peer advice and say, listen, we're all in this together. I need you to do this, and this is why. And demonstrating to them the importance of, their role in their workplace. And, it's the same with us, at the CBL when we have our head office or team offices. It's just ensuring that everybody has a role, but they overlap and they're really dependent on one another. And I think when you know that somebody's depending on you, you tend to react differently. I think, or you don't, and you're gone, right? I think that's how you get exposed. And thankfully, when I played, I had great people, and some people got exposed, and they were no longer around. But it does make for difficult decisions, and it's tough when you have individuals that are going the other direction.
I think it takes a certain type of value system to be a part of this type of a system, right? Because if you're someone who's just happy staying under the radar and kind of doing, enough to get by, I think when you come to an environment that's high performance, like a football team or CBL or other fast-paced startups where everyone is playing the role that is above and beyond what they were signed up for, I think it's very hard for someone to not get exposed there. One question, Mike, from this is, what do you look for when you hire someone? Let's say, in the past when you build CBL, what are those traits? And I'm curious because I have a hunch it's not technical skills. I believe it's something else. So we're curious to hear this.
Yeah, you're bang on when it's not technical skills. Because truthfully, there's a lot of roles we have within our organization that involve technical skills that I certainly don't have. And these are people that are at the forefront of what we do, right? These are the ones that are delivering our messaging on a daily basis, certainly on the social media side, technology side, et cetera. So I look at what makes the person who they are. And, I don't go deep diving. I can tell pretty quickly, what people are like. And I like to test them. And I don't mean test them in a negative way. I mean, I like to give them as much rope as they can handle, because I really do believe if you allow people just to if you believed in them enough to hire them, you have to believe them enough to actually let them do their job. And we look for people that are hungry. We look for people that are have bigger pictures, that maybe want something bigger and want to build a career. And this is a great point. And then I know once we get them, we'll lock them in. They're not going to go anywhere because we're going to treat them well. But you want to have go-getters. You want to have people that are, maybe didn't have to go and take the certain courses and get that diploma or degree. And you get a sense for people. You get a sense for how they will react with our other staff. And you try and find pieces of the puzzle, not only on the business side, but on the relationship side as well. And that just comes from meeting and discussing and getting and challenging them a bit to see what they're all about.
I think it's about. I know this thing where I look at the 3 H's, and I think you said them well. It's like humble, hungry, hardworking.
Yes.
I think if those three things check out, it's kind of like the CFL draft, right? Somebody might not be very technical right now, but as long as they have the fundamentals, the values, they believe in the system, they're going to be well in the locker room. The rest of the stuff will come. You can teach all the other stuff. What you probably can't teach is a work ethic. Yes,
the work ethic is huge. And then engaging our other staff, right? So it's not me making every hiring decision. Maybe to start it was, but once I assembled my staff and then I passed that along to the people whose role that is. I mean, that's how life works. I can't micromanage anything, nor do I want to. I want to allow people room to grow. And all those people that we have hired, they have developed at warp speed into be just these terrific not only people but leaders in their own right, in their own path. And then it just grows exponentially, right? They attract more people. They talk about the CBL. They're proud about it. They attract that, and that positivity means, oh man, that's a place I would like to go and work. These guys are doing great things. And that workplace, I guess, health and wellness and respect goes a long, long way for sure.
Yeah, it almost like positivity attracts positivity.
Right.
So when you're trying to hire other people, it's like, damn, I want to be here because everybody else is just so good and they actually want to be there. versus going to another office.
Right.
You can sometimes just feel it.
You could
That
feel
something's not right.
Yeah, and listen, sport, in the business of sport, you don't get rich, right? And you work lots of hours, and you don't divide your hours by the amount you make, because it doesn't work out to probably the minimum wage at some
Minimum
time.
wage, exactly.
But you can't teach passion. You really can't teach passion. Sports brings with it a ton of passion, and that's really the real fun part about it.
I want to really dive into one part here, Mike. What, in addition to relationships, what is one concept that you learned that you probably didn't know you were learning over your athletic career, that now you're like, this is your fundamental business strategy that you've been applying, whether it's leadership or strategic management? What is that one thing that you look back and you're like, wow, if I hadn't done football, I would not be doing this right now from a business perspective?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The easy ones are the teamwork and the relationships, and all that we discussed, because that's life. I really believe being involved in high pressure situations,
Yes.
and even though it involved 11 other guys on offense or vice versa, there's times when it comes down to you have to make a play, or you have to make a decision, and you make it at full speed, and you live with it. And there's nothing more humbling than making the wrong decision and being exposed. And in my case, it was being exposed in front of 25,000 or 30,000 people, and that's tough. I mean, I had many a day that I left the stadium and I listened to the call-in show after the radio and was getting criticized, right? But that's what you sign up for. But man, that certainly makes you a lot more, I guess, hardened, but in a positive way. You could take it either way. It'll either break you or it'll make you better. So I think that exposing myself to risk allowed me to do it. I don't think without sport, I don't think I could put myself in those situations. Just never would have happened. So, yes, the relationships are tremendous, but also the challenge personally was increasingly important, because as much as it's a team game, it takes all of us to do our individual jobs. And they always say the eye in the sky don't lie. I'm sure you know that. Yeah. Once that game film goes on and you're watching with your teammates, the one thing I knew is, like, I could fool the people in the stands probably. I can't fool my teammates, right? And I would dread going to film some days, knowing I screwed up and knowing that at some point the rest of the offense or my receivers will see it. And I was like sweating. But hey, that builds character.
I remember Sunday mornings, you'd be on the coach would have a laser pointer, like 10 beer. What the hell are you doing? You got the entire locker room there. It's like, man, you do not want to be there. But
no, you don't.
No. But it's those moments you're like, you know what? I can either let it crush me, or learn from it, get better, shake it off.
Yeah.
Well said. So, Mike, after your CFL career, I would love to understand, what was your role at the CFLPA, just generally, and how is that organization?
Well, it was, I think I was extremely fortunate. So I stopped playing in 2007, and shortly after that, I became the vice president of marketing for the CFL Players Association. I was involved as a player rep my whole career, and as a member at large, executive member. I had always had a business sense that I wanted to be involved on the business side. This was a chance for me to step into it and help players directly. So we started a marketing arm of the Players Association called Pro Players, and it was my job, amongst other things, but one of my major jobs was to create revenue streams for players off the field. So you owned the intellectual property rights of the players, so we were able to use them and to gain revenue from them. And my goal was to return that bulk of that to the players and have a portion remain with the PA to help the other 400 players that weren't participating, just to kind of grow the base. And that was extremely successful. But a lot of my job to start was policing the league and the teams, because a lot of people at that point, they never looked at the rights and what was in the collective agreement and really policed it. So I was a bit of a hard ass, I guess, to start because I was in there, always complaining. But I think over time people understood the reasons why, and it helped the association grow, because it changed how we looked at property rights and revenue in our collective agreement. It put money in there for the players on a yearly basis, et cetera, et cetera. And that whole time spent, I always wanted to, had the eye on, hey, one day maybe I can do this in an even bigger way. And that's from the presidency, and was very fortunate to be able to become president and go through my stint at president. And it was interesting. It was difficult because my objectives and my challenges or my ideas were a challenge to others. And that's probably why I didn't stay there as long as I thought, because I really tried to kind of buck the trend and the old system way of doing things. And when you do that, you ruffle some feathers.
Of course.
But I don't, I don't think that was a bad idea in any way. It really was something that I saw the bigger picture. It was important to me. And I think now when you look at, the state of the league and the relationships between associations and players, I don't think they need their way. Yeah. And they need to get better, right? They need to, communication is key. And I think that is something sometimes you have to look internally. You always can't blame the other side. You got to look at you operate. And I challenge that from a PA perspective, and hopefully they're better for it. And if not, somebody else will continue to do it.
Exactly. When you went from the vice president to the president role, is a huge shift. And, you ruffled some feathers, you got adversity. How did you cope with that? Well, what did you do to help yourself?
That was tough. That was because, when you're a player, everybody pats you on the back. And when you're an executive and you're challenging people, it's and you're looking at the old way, it's different. And that was hard for me initially, I think, knowing that you didn't have the full support of everybody and what that meant. But it really is sticking to your guns and looking at the big picture for overall good of everyone. And, that's a time I would never change. That really taught me a lot about the business side. It taught me a lot about how to interact for stuff outside the field. It prepared me for the role I have now, because it really kept me in tune with what was important for the players, what's important for teams and leagues, and gave me that kind of 360-degree view, which is really what I took as those learnings I took to help create the CEBL and how we operate and how we change things from how they were done, let's say, in the CFL, because I think I saw a better way. And so far it's worked out that way. And hopefully it will continue to.
Yeah. And the great point you make here is you took an experience that was tough, was challenging. And instead of, thinking upon it as a negative perspective, you said, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this experience and apply it? You never knew at that point, you didn't know you're going to become commissioner of CBL. You didn't know that. But what you probably did know was that I'm going to learn from this, and I'm somehow down the road, you're going to apply this and make it a success, right? And I think having a long-term viewpoint is always, always, always so critical.
Yeah, perfect. Because as it was going on, you think it's the end of the world, right? Things don't go your way in anything. You think that's it.
That's it.
And I told myself, oh man, this is happening for a reason. I don't know why, but it'll come in handy. I didn't know one day I'd be in the role I was in, but I did know that what I went through made me a better person. It would challenge me in ways that I hadn't been challenged before, and that was very interesting, because it now made me a more well-rounded person, because I experienced more than just one way of doing things. And unless you expose yourself to different viewpoints or other ways of looking at things, how do you even know? Because you have to learn that, right?
This is my, I think, 8th or 9th episode now that I'm recording, Mike. Every single executive I've spoken to said the exact same thing, that you have to go through roles that you either hate or that do not go your way. It's phenomenal. Yep. And it's amazing, because I did not, I knew this was something that people always say, all the CEOs I spoke to said, do the stuff nobody else wants to do. But honestly, this has come up in every single person I've spoken to on this show. And it just shows the power of, digging in your heels, doing the things that are hard, and always having a long-term perspective. It's amazing.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because, I think the common traits of good leaders are the fact that, they got to go through the tough stuff. It's incredibly important, because that's how you value the good times. And, I know that in my role now that I'm going to have challenges. We just came off massive challenges. Those challenges haven't gone away, but it's how we come out of them that makes us better. So I welcome the challenges. I don't like to deal with them every time. I like to have some good times too. But man, you really appreciate them more when you go through the tough ones.
What do you do on a daily basis, Mike, that helps you stay centered and leveled and always have this positive momentum on your side?
Oh,
What's your
man.
routine?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because the routines nowadays are different than they were pre-COVID. But we as an office are getting back to kind of some normalcy. So we're back in the office. So it's nice to have those kind of more routines. But even with COVID and communication is key, and that's what I've noticed. So being able to share details with your staff and being able to so that they have an understanding of what's in front of them or what the focus is or what the plan is has really allowed me to know that my staff is also working on a common goal. If they don't know what the common goal is and they don't know what's happening on a daily basis, how do you expect them to kind of follow where you're going? So
or believe in you,
can't,
right?
They have to believe in you. They have to understand the bigger picture, and you can't tell them everything. It's just the virtue of your job. But at the same time, so my routine is, generally speaking, is get up, have my coffee, and have my sandwich, and head over to the office and greet everybody with a smile on my face, ready to go. It doesn't matter how terrible of a day I have. It's good morning, everybody. Grab my espresso. They know I'm there. Crack a few jokes. Create some levity. Ask how everyone's doing. See what everyone's working on. And just having an open door. My office is right there with everyone else. The door is always open. Unless I have some particular phone calls that I have to make that are private in nature. But, and I just ask questions, what people are working on, or the simplest of things that I forget every day, like what's the Wi-Fi password? But it's just, I think becoming part of, the group and not excluding myself from the group is what I like to do. So I'm no different than anyone else. We're all working on the same common goal. I don't want to be put on high. I'm there to help lead, but at the same time, I'm also there to listen. So, that day is, it's different every day. So it's hard because, we live in an environment that a lot of things are different, but I like to engage people, stay open lines of communication, smile on my face, and just make sure everyone's there and having a good time.
That's a very well put together characteristics of a great leader. That's amazing, Mike. Just one thing quickly, you mentioned something where you always want to have a smile on your face when you greet your team, even if you have a really bad day. I know, in my experience and also from my leaders that I worked with and even other colleagues, that the moment that the way someone approaches you, and if it's somebody that you look up to as a leader, and the team is actually way more they're affected in a much more significant way than somebody might realize based on how the leader is acting. So for example, if I go into the office and every day I have a smile on my face and I'm greeting everyone, and then one day if I don't say hi to someone, that impact is much greater than what the leader might realize. And I think a lot of leaders don't understand that. So I think you brought up a great point there.
Yeah, I completely agree, because there's days, believe me, that the stress is at a all-time high, but I just can't, and I have my confidants, right? So I have my VP and the one that I really rely on, kind of where I can be brutally honest. But then I say, okay, we got to understand, like, we can't let this infiltrate everyone else, because we'll handle it. Let's not have them worry about stuff that's kind of out of their control. They need to go to the common goal, and we'll manage this stuff. So having good allies is a big part of it too. I can't do everything myself. I realize that, and I can't, just always put on a fake smile some days if it is one of those days. I got to be able to get out kind of my anxiety or my frustration or my concerns, but in a positive way that doesn't affect everyone else. And that's the balance, I think. But yeah, the one day I come in and believe me, there's many days to go in high stress and migraines or whatever, but you could do 99 out of 100. You walk in with a smile. That one time, like you said, you don't. That could derail the other 99 times sometimes, right? And that's hard because I don't always leave happy. I try to, and the majority of what I do, but it's life. So there are bad days and there are good days.
Amazing. How did this venture, the CBL, start? If you had to give me a quick summary, Mike. Just curious to understand how the league came about, how you started on the role, and what does your role actually consist of on a day-to-day basis? I'd love to understand that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the CBL kind of morphed out of nowhere, to be honest with you. Our founder, Richard Petco, who owns the league, he had a team in another league, basketball team in Niagara, and he just wasn't happy with the way the league was handling things, and he thought it could be better. And we actually befriended ourselves through another job I had, and he recognized me from football, and he felt comfortable enough just bouncing things off me, ideas. Okay, this is happening. How would you deal with it? This is my relationship with the league. It's not working that well, and those discussions led to him actually pitching me to the commissioner of this other league. And I met with the group, and I just, within a little short period of time, I just knew it wasn't for me, and I shared that with him. And he said, well, that's why I sent you in there. He goes, it was kind of just, he needed someone else to walk in and say, this ain't right. And from that point, it became just casual conversation. What would you do differently? And how would this, if you were to do it, how would it be set up? And those became basically the CEBL, the formulation of ideas and a business plan and a direction. And from there, we just continue to go and go and go. And he just said, go ahead and build it. And he has been unbelievable. Talk about leaders. I mean, here's a guy that never micromanages me. Literally, rarely, if ever, kind of interrupts anything I'm doing. And if he does, it's usually with a tremendous thought. And he just said, I hired you to do this job. I have complete faith and trust in you, so go for it. And it's a big endeavor. I mean, there's lots of money and lots of stuff at stake. So, that we started formulating the team, building the team, and the common goal was there's something missing here. We have a nation that is in love with basketball, that has watched, the Raptors start in 95 and become NBA champions and everything that's come with it. But we also knew and hired people that had been with the Raptors in 1995 and knew what it was like to go through 20 some odd years of the crap, right? We all look at the Raptors now, we're like, you wave the flag, but man, there were some bad years in there.
There's some bad years.
There were some lean years, playing under the Sky Dome and lots of stuff that you wouldn't normally do in a business. But how that relates to us and how, finding people that have been through similar situations has been a blessing. And, we built this day in and day out, found, looked at our strategy, looked at the business plan. This is probably a whole episode in itself, but essentially we knew there was something missing and we thought there was a better way of doing it. And it started with the strength of the league office. So we knew by looking at other leagues that, yes, you can have dominant individual teams, but sometimes those come at the unfortunately, are not good for the league, right? So you want to have the Buffalo Bills are nothing without the NFL shield, let's say, right? So we knew that we needed to have a strong leadership and direction at the league office, and then we would roll that down to our teams. And if everybody kind of followed the same path, that we would be better collectively together. So my job now, it's morphed a bit. In the beginning, it was certainly about building and growing, finding the pieces and direction and everything. And it still is all of that. But now it's that phase 2 or phase 3. Okay, where am I going next for new expansion groups? Where are we going next for people looking to buy our internal teams? Or is there interest for parties to become part of the CEBL league office, or growing our political connections, our TV rights or international rights? Just thinking a lot more big picture. So that's what I do, because I built a staff that does a lot of the other stuff. And I'm a stickler for a handful of things when it comes. It's kind of the experience, the in-game experience, and the at-home experience. That's and dress code. The one thing about me, I'm a stickler for dress code because I think it means something, right? But that's kind of how, very Coles Notes version of kind of where it came about and kind of what I do now on a daily basis.
Amazing. Now, I'm curious to know, how do you have it? How do you generate your business plan? I know a lot of executives have a 5-year plan, 3-year strat plan. What was your business plan when you just started the idea? What does it look like now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't think we've ever had a 5-year plan. We've always worked on 3-year plans, but they kind of keep moving forward, right? So right now we're probably in looking at the next 3, 4, and 5. So we're at that, theoretically we're at that 5-year business plan. But because it's so fluid and because the way we operate, it's things change. And of course, nobody planned for COVID. And that threw a wrench into our plans, but not as much as you would think, because we were able to pivot and put our summer series on and probably, and I would say definitely, but we gained more of that experience from a brand awareness, recognition, et cetera, than I think we would have playing a regular season in 2020. And it's funny you think that, but sometimes the business plans change and they change quickly. So now we revise on a regular basis, and we do it from a league perspective. We do it from a team perspective. And it's almost like we create these mini 1-year business plans, but with the end goal is kind of always to grow and look at how does that reflect what we're trying to do in years 3, 4, and 5, et cetera.
Amazing. That's very well said. I think also like the way you said, you guys use the adversity from COVID and found a way to actually generate more buzz and actually have a more, successful season than you otherwise would have. I think that's tremendous because you took something that was for a lot of 99% of their businesses, something that was a downturn or negative, event in the history of sports or business. And you actually were able to leverage that. I think it all starts with the foundations and the right leadership, right? That we've been discussing this entire show. So again, kudos to an amazing season, amazing start, Mike, and I'm so excited to see what you guys have in stock for 2020 and 2021 and beyond. So excited. Before we end the show, Mike, what is the one thing that you would advise someone, a room full of students, young professionals that are just trying to grow, either go to entrepreneurship, build their business? What's the one piece of advice that you would say, just follow this and everything's going to be okay?
I think you got to believe in yourself. Number one, you really do. Try not to be more than what you are. Try not to be, what this person is looking for, and just be yourself. And I think, maybe it's kind of like dating a bit, right? You're going to have some, dates that don't work out, and you're going to have some relationships that start strong but don't end off as well, and you're going to have some that it's a perfect marriage. And when I look at athletes, and so for instance, I look at what we're doing in the CBL, and now we're at that point where we're getting a lot of players that are at the end of their career that want to become part of what we're doing, and they can feel they can serve a purpose. And I believe them, but I also believe you have to bring value. So you have to be able to demonstrate what your value is. You have to be able to articulate it, and you have to know what it is. You can't just say, well, I can do this, this, and this. You really have to have a passion for where you can see yourself making a change or challenging the status quo or doing stuff differently. But it really comes with, I think, just being yourself, just understanding what you're good at, understanding what makes you tick, and then never stop learning, right? Because we live in a fast-paced world. Things change all the time. But, I went to school, I graduated with a social science degree. Maybe I was going to be a teacher if I didn't play football. Yeah. I don't even know. Football sport brought me to university, got me an education. That's the beauty of football. Got me an education, and then taught me all those things that no class taught me, right? Just being there on the field. So, really, being book smart is great, and having degrees and diplomas is great. I'm not one that looks at that and says, well, that's what we need. You have to have this, this, and this. I just want the best people. I want them to believe in themselves. I want them to have faith in themselves. And I want them to put themselves in a position they can be challenged. And I'd love to see, what happens on the other side of it.
Believe in yourself. Always keep learning. And keep striving for not perfection, but keep striving for the best you can do
Right.
In your career. And I think have a value proposition of what do you bring to, the organization or the world that you're trying to go and make a difference in.
Exactly.
Amazing. Mike, how can listeners learn more about CBL, follow you? What are your social channels?
Yeah, so I mean, from a league perspective, CBL.ca is our website. CBL League with one L is our Twitter and our Instagram handles. And I know we have Facebook and we're on Twitch and all the rest of that stuff. Yeah. But, we live in a digital world. I think we do a tremendous job in kind of showcasing who we are, a lot of times visually through our channel. So please tune in. We hope that 2021 will have fans in the stands in a normal way. So, give us a follow. You can find me at Mike Morreale 18, so 18. That's the old football number. And those are the same handles on Instagram and Twitter. And for me, I'm not. There's not going to be too many profound things that I do. I do it because I'll speak when I think there's something to say, and other than that, I'll follow what's going on. And I guess the one thing is, as we all know, but what you do and what you say on your social media channels, they're watched and listened, and they don't go away. So just be smart on what you're doing. I certainly try to be as well. And we live in a world that you can offend people quite easily nowadays. So just be true. Just be true to yourself, and I don't think you can ever go wrong.
Amazing. Well said, Mike. Mike Morreale, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you. I learned a ton of new stuff. I'm actually leaving this podcast inspired and motivated than I was an hour ago. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Well, listen, Tanvir, I know you well enough to know that you're doing all the right things. I mean, you have a successful career, but even what you're doing now is a testament to kind of, that you're giving back, and you're still young, right? And you're still trying to help, those new people come. Hopefully I have a hand in trying to help. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. I think it's incredible, and I wish you all the best.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Team, remember to like, subscribe, and share with a friend, and visit tanvirbango.com for a ton of free content and exercises.